everything. And here I am 10 years down the line, and I'm still fighting because that's the route that I did take. So, we're really to do something about this now.
Yes, Anne has always mentioned to me right from the start that not only does she want justice for Hollie, for herself and for her poor brother who was killed, but she also does not want any children or any mothers to go through what she and Hollie have had to go through. Yeah. That's very important to her.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we know of a case just now at the moment of a little Down syndrome boy who has, suffered sexual abuse and torture, that actually lost some of his fingernails and toenails with these absolute monsters.
Sheesh, God.
And this has happened in England, actually, and this again is being covered up.
Yeah.
So it's not my case, so we can't really talk about it at length. We've just heard about this.
Okay.
But it's consistent with the kind of things we're hearing all the time.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? That it seems to be the same pattern that popping up in many different places here. What would you suggest then that we have listeners with us who might be able to, they want to help and support you guys in some way. What can be done in that sense?
It's a little bit of a tough one, and all I can say is really to keep on listening to us and perhaps writing to people in England, to politicians. There is another very strong body who have been very courageous, and I must mention at this time, called Scotland Against Crooked Lawyers, and the chairman of that organisation, a very brave and loyal Scot called Stuart Usher, was the person who first approached me to come and try and help try and solve this problem with this terrible problem that Anne and Hollie had. And he has made a suggestion, with the support of many Scots, of suggesting to the international community that until there is regime change in Scotland, that some kind of boycott of Scotland, Scottish goods, people visiting Scotland, all those kind of things should take place. And we know that's not really always the nicest way of doing it, because innocent people often suffer as a result of that. But the general feeling that we've received from our Scottish friends is that it is probably going to be a price worth paying if it brings down this awful unelected regime that is running the country.
Absolutely. And in one way, in the extension at least, it is also the responsibility of the people in a country to make sure that the people who are ruling the country are doing so lawfully, and that is done in a fair way, obviously, as well.
To be fair to the people of Scotland, the general person in Scotland is totally unaware that this is going on.
Of course, absolutely.
Because it's not reported in the newspapers, it's not reported in the media, radio, television, nothing.
It's staggering, really, when one comes to think that it's one of the lead stories in a country like Pakistan, a long, long way away, and yet in the country, and in fact in the city where these crimes are being committed, you would not know that anything was going on.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how that works?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think it should be mentioned that we actually got a commission from the BBC, to do 3 programs. One, a documentary on not just involving Hollie, but another Down syndrome girl in Scotland that the same thing was happening to, and also a radio program, and also a program called Panorama. And we were actually, granted that commission. They spent 6 weeks, going over all our documents. They came down to Shropshire and spent, was it 4.5 hours, Robert?
Yes, it was about 5.5 actually, yes.
5.5 hours. Hollie speaking to them, me speaking to them, went over every aspect of the case. And we got an email stating that we got the commission. And about a fortnight after. It was
the 10th of it. They came to see us on the 4th of June after spending many weeks of going over all the documents and being absolutely satisfied with everything. And on the 10th of June, the leading reporter, a man called Mark Daly, phoned both Anne and spoke to me as well to say that they've been stopped from doing the story.
Really, no. Did he say why?
This is the BBC.
He was going to lose his job.
So who's got the power to stop the BBC?
Well, the people have it.
The people involved have got the power to stop them.
Yeah, exactly.
And we also know, another thing that I haven't mentioned publicly before, but I'd like to bring it up now, is to give an example of the power that these people have, is that not only were the 3 reporters from the BBC, senior reporters from the BBC, threatened with the sack if they carried on any further investigations in paedophilia, but a very brave person has actually been sacked because of Hollie's story, because he had the temerity to support Hollie's story. And his name is John Smithies, and he is the press officer for the Down Syndrome Association, who had been extremely supportive. Two of the main spokesmen throughout this case, when both Anna told about the campaign, I'd had extensive discussions about the campaign that we were embarking on. And because they knew that a lot of people with Down syndrome and also people with other learning disabilities were being sexually abused, because obviously the perpetrators, the cowards that they are, thought that they wouldn't be in a position to give evidence against them. They felt that this campaign was really well worth backing, and that this particular campaign would be a test case for all people who wanted to stand, all people who've got disabilities who had the courage and competence to stand up, and Hollie certainly did. So they provided the full backing for us on this of the Downs Association. Now, this went on for some time. Obviously, we were getting closer and closer to exposing the group, and I'd made a public speech in Edinburgh, which I referred to earlier on, in which I named all the perpetrators and victims. Shortly after that, I received a call from the press officer, John Smithies, towards the end of October, and he said to me, Robert, he said, I'm really concerned. He said, I've done... all the information you've been given about the rape gang and everything. He says, has anybody ever taken any legal action against you? And I said, well, no, not yet. I've been exposing this and publicizing this for many months now, and I haven't had the slightest reaction as far as warnings are concerned from anybody, even though I've been very, very aggressive and very, outward and named everybody and said what they've done and when and all the rest of it. No one's come back at me. And he said, well, the thing is, he said, that I've been we're supporting you and everything like that. And he said, I've passed on this information that is in the public domain that you've mentioned in an internal memo. He says, and as a result, I've been asked to see the chief executive, a lady called Carol Boyes, who significantly is a lawyer, on Monday. And I'm a bit worried about it. So I said, well, John, I said, you've not done anything that I can think that could possibly be wrong. It hasn't come out from within your organisation, and whatever it is, it's all in the public domain. It's all consistent with everything we've done, and we've liaised with you throughout. And I know you've been very, very good in supporting us in bringing, making an example of these terrible issues and the way in which they conduct against people with learning disabilities. You've been great, so I don't think you've got anything to worry about. But there we go. Anyway, I found the meeting was on Monday at the end of October. I didn't hear anything on the Monday. But on Tuesday, I rang John Smithies again, and he said, Robert, he said, I've been sacked. I said, what? He said, I've been sacked. I said, well, why would that be you, John? How could they sack you? He said, I think I've been told I've got a good chance of claiming unfair dismissal, but the chief executive, Carol Boyes, has told me that what I was doing was likely to cause the Downs Association, was jeopardising the association, in that legal action may be taken against them by the people who've been named.
Right.
I said, but you didn't go outside the org. He says, I haven't been named outside, and it's in the public domain anyway. I've named them all. But he got sacked. He was sacked.
Poor man.
Yes, absolutely. So certain people are in that sense, they're being threatened and targeted, and the word is also being passed then kind of around you, surrounding you, wherever persons and people you approach.
And since that incident happened, I have phoned the person that I normally dealt with at the Downs Association, and I have left messages. I can never get through to her. I have left messages for her to call me, and she's never got back to me. Well, so she's been gagged as well. Yes.
Well, that lady is called Susanna Seaman, and I must say she's been very, very supportive, and very, very helpful indeed. Yeah. She's been excellent, so it is fair to say that. She's been really, really good, but obviously she's been intimidated into silence as well.
Yeah,
I challenged the chief executive, and I said, again, as I mentioned to the BBC when they dropped the story suddenly, I said, I emailed her and I said, what's going on here? I said, who told you to sack Mr. Smithies because of the Hollie Greig case? Who was it? I think you've been put under pressure here. Well, she wouldn't respond at all. She just sort of ignores it. It's an internal matter, nothing to do with you, Mr. Green, and so on and so on. Of course, it matters to everybody who's involved in protecting people from these terrible abuses.
And especially the Downs Association, because they are the representatives of every Down